Welcome back, everyone. Jeramy Poole here, CEO of Real Estate Social. I have a very fantastic guest, episode 4 of Fearless. My good friend Andrew Perrie, all the way from Ontario, Canada, with Revel Realty.
Yeah, man, how's it going? Great to be here. I'm super pumped.
I know, man. I feel like we've been like long distance friends for a while now.
I know. I was so excited when you sent that invitation out to me because I was like, man, finally I get to meet this guy.
Right
After
on.
Following you for so long.
Yeah, likewise,
excited.
man.
Yeah, this
likewise.
Is great.
Yeah, so just really quickly before we jump into the questioning here, tell me a little bit about your company.
Okay, so I work with a company called Revel Realty. I chose this company. It's a smaller boutique brokerage compared to your national or international brands.
Right.
But having said that, in the 5 years they've been open now, the 5 years, they went from 0 to 102 agents as of today.
Wow.
So incredible. And in terms of market share, we're absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because we're attracting the best people because we're so innovative.
Okay.
And the culture is just insane.
Right.
And as well as they allow top agents, like myself, to come in and start their own office. And so now I've teamed up with a couple of people down here in Niagara-on-the-Lake, just outside of Niagara Falls in Ontario. And now we've got this whole place rocking, man. We're ready to go.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
And then also talk to me a little bit about the whole wine thing.
Oh, okay. So my wife, her father owns a winery.
Okay.
Excuse me. And so when we'll get into this, because I love this topic and a lot about what we need to talk about kind of leads into this, but I had a couple of options: go live in my hometown of Perrie, Ontario, which is 2 hours north, or stay with my wife and her family where all the wine is.
Sure.
So the obvious choice is where I am today with the wine.
Love it. And so, on the topic of being innovative and creative, you're a big proponent of video, as am I. I think that's where we really connected. Is the rest of the company that way as well? Or
Hands down.
Blazing that trail?
Absolutely. I mean, as much as I would love to think that I was kind of the guy that brought it into the industry, I think Revel really brought it first.
Oh, right on.
And Revel Realty, the consistency. So we actually have our in-house videographers, our in-house photographers. So you know when it's a Revel Realty listing, Okay. Everything's consistent, as well as we have the creative ability to be ourselves within the same brand umbrella, which is great.
Authenticity is huge, man. That's one thing I'm always preaching with our team, and then also when clients have us come in and do presentations, or I work with their teams, is that you want to be accidentally awesome. I mean, it's one thing to be polished and professional, but you still want to have a substantial element of who you truly are at the bar, at home, at the bowling alley, but then most importantly, once you're giving that actual presentation, whether it's on video or in person. So that's awesome, man.
Absolutely. And it's about the consistency through, like, as you mentioned, through your personal life, through your posts,
continuity,
through your business conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
continuity.
Networking.
Right on, buddy. Well, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So for those individuals, perhaps this is your first episode or maybe it's your second, this is really a build off of the moment. Started a traveling vlog about a year and a half ago, allowed us to start traveling and really understand from top lenders, top builders, top agents, what does it take, or what was that pinnacle moment in your life that allowed you to become who you are today? And really what I found from that process that was sort of very consistent throughout is that they learned how to deal with this mechanism. They learn how to deal with the Ferrari in their head. And sometimes that thing can drive off the road, off the cliff and ruin your day. Or if you keep it under control, it can take you to places that you haven't even imagined. And so what this show is all about is how are you dealing, Andrew specifically, how are you dealing and what is your relationship with fear on a daily basis? And how does that allow you to make good decisions?
Well, at the time, only just because we've been, as my story has developed over the course of the last, few years, my relationship with fear has been one that is exciting, uncertain, and one that I have learned a lot about myself. So I've learned how to trust myself, and
That's so important right there.
Absolutely. And if I could, I'll just go into one of the biggest moments in my life where fear, it was one of those true sink or swims. And I know Warren Buffett says never test the waters with 2 feet, but I'm the type of guy with, okay, maybe not full 2 feet, but I'll leave it like a pinky on shore, that, little pinky or whatever. So I'm sure you're familiar in the States with the company LA Fitness.
Sure.
You know that company? Yeah. So it's an American-based company that came into Canada, and that's where I got all my sales training, right? And I moved up the ranks. I moved up the ranks real quick.
Right on.
Actually moved 3 provinces over to open up a few of our own clubs and run the district out there. And we had, in control of making a good salary, in control of
good for you.
30 people.
Yeah.
And amazing, right? You're making mid 150K, 170K take home after taxes. And I got to a point where I'm like, man, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I gotta figure something out to make me happy, and really start enjoying my life, because 150K take home is great. That's nice, man. But when you're working 6 days a week, 12, 16 hours a day, you got to find something that really drives you in terms of your passions, right?
And that's yours. And that's
absolutely
yours, right?
And that's yours, and that's big. The creativeness of one's life, it can't be burnt out. That flame has to keep going. And so anyways, I moved my wife out there. She was pregnant with my son at the time. We had my son. He was 2 months old. And that's when I decided, I'm like, no, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. And the first question in your mind, well, if you switch something up, what are you going to do?
Sure.
And how is that going to affect your financials? How's that going to affect your family? You just had a baby. What are you going to do? So I decided, like any sane person, to deal with the fear, quit my job, move 3 provinces back over to the east, and start my own business, because that's what people do, right?
Right.
So I had to tackle that fear, and that was my first real tussle with that kind of a beast.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I just did it.
That is absolutely fantastic, man. I love that, because, I kind of think what you have to do is that you have to get really clear on the pros and the cons and ask yourself, are you happy? I think a big thing that drives me is you're going to die one day. Mm-hmm. You're going to get old. The sand in the hourglass is pouring. And so the question becomes, not how much money can you accumulate, not necessarily all these accomplishments, but how am I going to enjoy life? How can I wake up tomorrow stoked about life? And throughout my life, I've been pretty consistently making some pretty big pivots, some pretty big changes in my life when I have too many days in a row that I'm not necessarily looking forward to.
And I think it's not necessarily, as you say, the freedom of financial security. It's more of the freedom of time, the ability to create your own schedule. So I'm busier now than I ever was, but I'm busy with a purpose, and there's a difference.
And it shows too, it absolutely shows, because if you're excited, if you're happy, you get to create something, you get to do something that's uniquely yours and show the world really who you are.
Absolutely. Cannot agree more.
It's fantastic. All right. So next question is, tell me about a recent situation or a problem that you were sincerely afraid of, that you were really scared of. And your mind is kind of taking you on this emotional roller coaster, but you were eventually able to take control of it, and what the outcome was.
Yeah. Okay. So other than the biggest piece of, fear battling that I had to overcome, which I just kind of talked about, I had something a little bit more recent. And this was more of an ego fear, not like a financial fear. It was more like, okay, what is my network? What is my industry going to think of me? So I just recently started, well, not recently, maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, I started a real estate team called the Fine Estates team.
Yep.
And I kind of portrayed myself as this guy who had all the answers. I portrayed myself as the guy who came from being the district manager at LA Fitness and being able to run the show.
Sure.
I knew that I could run the play with my new team.
Right.
And it didn't work out how I thought. And the biggest thing between a self-employed team member and somebody who still has a little bit of a salary, even though that they're working on commission, is so different.
Right.
You can kind of help motivate these people to try to make something of themselves, but you can't hold their hand when they're fully self-employed because you've got a business to run as well, right? So once the team kind of start to dissolve, I was so scared of what people's thoughts of me were going to be.
Perception,
yeah. And so I tried to maneuver it in such a way that it didn't look as if everybody on my team was quitting.
Sure.
And I realized that wasn't me. That I'm not a guy who dances around a situation. I'm not the guy who would lie or try to manipulate stories. And I had to overcome that fear of what people would think of me and just take it as a learning opportunity.
That's good.
Really pull up my socks and just figure out the next move.
I love that.
And that's just one of those things that you got to do. You got to look at your integrity, look at the full outcome. I mean, are you going to die because of, this encounter that you're going to have with fear?
Sure.
No.
No.
Are you going to go broke? No. So then you need to reassess what are the pros and cons, as you mentioned, and just really double down and kind of bite your tongue on a few things,
Yeah. No, I love that, man. Cause I think one way of looking at something that really helps me move forward, especially in those tough times when I'm dealing with those mind monsters, is not what happened and what the immediate outcome is going to be, but what am I becoming because of it? And I think what you'll find is as long as you're not reacting, as long as you're playing offense and not defense, like kind of trying to protect and kind of preserve this image of yourself, that you can actually position it to where, hey, I've learned so much now. I'm actually more evolved. I'm actually a better business person now. Now I have a better understanding of who I should be looking for. It's not that they were bad picks on my
absolutely.
It's just I have a better understanding of the human animal when it comes to going from a salary or a full-time job and having that consistent income to now being a self-employed person. I made that mistake. I mean, I brought on a few people that I had to almost immediately let go because I'm a salesperson and I like being sold. So if you looked at me and you said, hey, Jeremy, I can do the job, I'm rooting for you. I'm thinking, of course you can. So in the space that we are, in Seattle market, video hasn't necessarily been that prevalent. And then once I started using video quite a bit, lots of people started reaching out, wanted to use our resources. And so if you got me on the phone, whether it's selling a mortgage or selling a home or selling a video, I'm probably going to sell you something. And so I just figured that the other people on my team could do the same thing. And then I quickly found out that was not the case. And it's not necessarily that I'm so good and they're not. It's more so it's just finding out some people are really good at certain things and some people aren't. Maybe perhaps those people are better positioned for admin or better positioned for marketing.
Yeah. Also it was more on me. It was more on the fact that, I was giving them leads every day. I was providing training, but there's still something missing, that loss of connection, or maybe it was my own fear that every day things were kind of slipping through the cracks, and that fear was building up. Okay, what if I lose the team? What if I lose my money? What if I'm spending too much money?
And then now you're acting that way.
What if people find out that I'm not the greatest leader that I led on to be? Maybe that was just one of those snowball fear effects that kind of hit me.
Yeah. That's all of that. And I think having humility with that is so important. Not to necessarily lose the confidence that you have, because I think that is, probably the biggest factor I think in anyone's success is that you take somebody who's more naturally talented and you take somebody who's kind of, average. And if this person is confident, not necessarily in their current skill set, but where they're going, and they know I'm going to get it done, that person typically is always going to outperform the person who's more naturally talented. But, just getting real, because especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur, man, I've been an entrepreneur running businesses and things of that nature since I was 19 years old. And you become accustomed to failure, realizing that failure is just a part of the process. If you look at the average millionaire, what they say on average, they file bankruptcy like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Well, if you think about in sales, you know, especially in cold calling or anything like that, what is the percentage of no's that lead you to
Sure.
that yes, right?
Right.
And all these little teeny failures, they might appear to be larger failures, but in the grand scheme, they're all these little teeny pieces of failure. Though that's just another no, right?
Yeah.
That's just another step to get you to that yes.
Yes. It's just another no on the way to yes. That's it, right?
I think what a lot of entrepreneurs and sales reps in the real estate industry, they take that as a huge hit.
Right.
And now they start allowing that fear to build up and say, I got in the wrong business, man. What am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And it's one of those roller coasters that you kind of deal with as an entrepreneur, right?
Yep. You know, I call those mind monsters. And as somebody who kind of got into video and started helping other people with video, it was very interesting for me to act as the director while the video was happening, because these people are so incredibly gifted and comfortable talking on stage, talking on the phone, in a meeting, but you put a camera in front of their face. You probably experienced this. You put a camera in front of their face. All of a sudden, I've had people who are very successful just can't do it. Just can't do it. And it's mind monsters, right? It's your mind is usually telling you a few things. And whether it's faith and fear, the thing that you're fearful of, or faith and success, you're feeding both of them. But the one that's going to win is the one that you're feeding most. And that's why I love this topic so much, is because over the last 2.5 years, 2 years now, I've made it a point to try to do the things that scare me, right? Because if you want to build a team, that's for you. I feel like that was the universe nudging you in that direction and say, Andrew, you need to build a team because you're going to be a great leader. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to smack it out of the fence and do a grand slam the first time. In fact, it actually adds to your story, right? It adds to your story. So now you can go back when you're, so are you currently trying to build a team now, or are you going to?
So I definitely stepping back a lot, I really got into this industry to be the main authority in the luxury marketplace. Okay. And starting a team in the luxury marketplace was a very difficult thing to start on, especially with a team of 5. Sure. So now I've settled and I'm still incredibly busy. So I need that buyer's agent. So I'm on the lookout for the right buyer's agent now, because tons of leads I need somebody to take care of. But that's where we're going to start. We're going to build that one person up, focus on their skills and their talent, and then motivate them to kind of take control of their own life, their own business. All connects, right? And then that way, when they're ready to start getting their own listings, then we can hire another agent. I love that. Just real quickly, for the folks who are going to be watching this video in your market, what are you looking for? What are some key characteristics that you're looking for in the ideal buyer's market or buyer's agent for you? It's one simple thing. Okay. One simple thing. Let me just rephrase that. The burning desire to sell. Okay. That's the one thing. All right. That's the one thing. If you can allow that, that energy to flow through you throughout the sale and those endorphins. Yes. That's going to push you to the next one. Dude, that's it, man. I believe that human beings are spirits having a human experience. And when you're inspired, that means that you're in spirit. And so if you can communicate from a place of not necessarily, yes, I'm trying to influence you. I'm trying to get you to buy the product so I can make money, of course. But I am so jacked about what this thing does and what it can do for you that I can express myself freely or freely. And when you do that, the other human being who's involved in that conversation can sense that. And that is so contagious. And that's what I found, is that if I'm wrapped up on necessarily trying to make the sell, maybe I'll get the sell, maybe I won't, but it doesn't really feel as good as if I just let myself go and not try to overly script it, just express myself. But that's only possible if you know your stuff, right? Right. Absolutely. But it's more than that. I came up with this little tagline, when I was really just trying to be the next Gary V, right? Everybody's trying to, you know what I'm saying? So I would do these quotes, and I would, every time, Les Brown always says, record yourself. Every time you hear a quote, write it down. Yeah. So I came up with this little tagline It's about creating relationships and not customers.
Okay.
We're not necessarily customers. And the whole premise behind that is like the same thing about Gary Vee, right? Jab, jab, punch, or
jab, jab, right hook.
Right hook, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about providing that connection, growing your network, and offering pieces of value, even if it's spiritually, if it's financially, if it's something that can help you out in business. It's all these little teeny things that eventually help you become top of mind, right? So you always want to build that mind share.
Right.
That will, my buddy David Greenspan always says, the mind share leads to market share.
Right? No, that is it right there. Ultimately, I think sales comes down to one thing. People have to like you. Mm-hmm. You cannot be the most experienced. You cannot be the best looking, the best dressed, the best whatever. If you know your product or service, and if you can get people to like you, that's number one. And I think the best way to get people to like you is for you to be yourself. That is like the sexiest thing. Like, sometimes you'll see like this kind of strange looking guy with this really hot chick. You're like, how did he pull that off?
Happen?
Right. But typically is that individual has become so comfortable with who they are that they just exude a certain level of confidence.
Right.
That's attractive not only to the opposite sex, but also, in business and friends,
of course,
and all that stuff. We want to be around energy. So if you exude that exciting, happy energy, not just for the moment, but have positive expectations and anticipation for what's going to happen in the future, then that's attractive.
Absolutely. Could not agree more.
Right on, brother. All right. So last question I have for you is, and this is a big one, is what's your worst nightmare in business or in your life? And how are you using that fear, right, to intensify your business plan, to intensify what you do to make sure that thing doesn't happen?
Well, it's weird to think about, only because whatever is a nightmare, I know that it's never going to stop me. That's the thing, right? So it's hard to think about that. But I guess I would say is I always had these really high dreams. I'm going to be a millionaire.
Yes.
I'm going to be a millionaire. I've had that conversation with myself since I was a very young person.
Mm-hmm, me too.
And my fear is that, again, it's not a financial fear. It's the fear of the fact that I've told everybody about this dream.
Yeah.
And if my dream suddenly became my nightmare, I don't know if I'm going to be able to face my family, my friends, my audience, for whatever that's worth.
Sure.
And that's what really scares me. And I would, if I broke both my legs, and I would still be able to work somehow. If I went into a coma, maybe that would be a big fear. But I wouldn't be able to help support my family. Yeah. But I'm not worried about that necessarily, because there's always something that I can do no matter what.
Yeah. Now,
spiritual suicide is something that I think about often as well, because what if I can't do what I'm doing and I need to go back to a 9-to-5 job so I could get that stable income?
Yeah.
That's a big fear.
Yeah.
And so something that I deal with, how I deal with that every day, is just being a badass every day, man. Hitting the phones, doing what you need to do in order to get things done.
That's right.
And when that's not working, you switch it up. You take a different route to work. You call a different set of people in your sphere. You've been tackling these A clients, or maybe these cold leads. You need to start tackling something that's going to pay off now. Keep that burning desire inside lit, every day. And that's what you kind of got to battle with yourself. You can't let the nightmares or let the fears take over your dreams, I guess you could say. I'm not as good as metaphors as you, but it's I'm trying.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense, man. I found, one of my favorite books, probably a lot of people, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Something that really stuck out to me just recently when I was rereading it, that I've heard before, but I guess it didn't really sink in, is that sometimes you have to act a certain way. You have to begin to do the things before you can feel it. And I feel like oftentimes we are searching for that motivation. Like, man, I just wish I could get up and be excited about life so I can go do the things. But oftentimes that's not how it works. If you want consistency, if you want long-term longevity success, you have to act, right? Like this morning I woke up didn't sleep very well. I tried to hit the gym every day, if not twice a day. And I just did not want to go to the gym. And I just told myself, just put your shoes on, get there, take your pre-workout. And by the time you get there, you'll feel like it. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes I found that that's the case with everything, because especially if you're trying to take on a big challenge, you go on this emotional roller coaster. First, you get super excited because you're naive and you don't realize how much work it's going to take. And then you become knowledgeable. Then you're like, holy crap. I mean, do I really want this thing? And then you start to get some momentum, and then you start to go down the mountain, and then like, yes, I can do it. And then you go back and hit this valley, but I still have all the stuff I have to do.
Oh man.
Absolutely. And so, mind monsters, man, it's understanding what those feelings and what those thoughts are, and realizing that that's not you. Mm-hmm. Right. It's just the observer inside of you observing a situation and then coming to a conclusion. But you can ultimately decide to grab a hold of that thing and steer it to wherever you want. And for me, my biggest fear has always been kind of like you. I have this monumental, big, huge goals for myself, is just to live a normal life. Like, to wind up in a situation where I'm working a 9 to 5 and I'm 85 years old and I'm thinking to myself, mm-hmm. God dang it, I could have been great. But I settled because I was too afraid. I didn't do that thing that my heart really desired only because I was afraid. Mm-hmm. And that scares the crap out of me.
That is scary. That is very scary. And again, like, I'm not scared for myself, but at the same time, I'm scared for my parents. I'm mm-hmm. scared for my wife. I'm scared for my children, that they might take that route in life, because, my wife does not take any risks. Uh-huh. Every time I do something, she believes in me and she supports me, but she's like, wow, how could you do that? How could you do that? How do you, even when I go up on stage, I do a lot of talks. When I do seminars, I run a lot of course on luxury marketing and everything like that. And she's like, aren't you going to prepare? I'm like, no. I don't need to prepare. If you can speak from the heart and you know what you're talking about, you're passionate about it, there's no fear there. And it just goes to show, like, how so many people need to feel like they need the answers of a situation before they go into it. That's
so good. That is doing public speaking is something I've tried to do a lot more of recently over the last year. And I'm trying to do more of it as time goes on. But I still get butterflies in my stomach right before, but once I'm on stage, I'm actually incredibly calm, and everything's like, oh yeah, this is right where I'm supposed to be. This feels good. But I've read now 3 books on TED Talks, on the mm-hmm. structure, the psychology of it, building up the audience, telling a story, and then ending with a nice climax, and then just understanding the whole thought process behind giving an exquisite TED Talk.
Talk like Ted.
Exactly. Is people spend a lot of money on paying coaches to learn how to have a conversation just like this mm-hmm. on stage. Because if you can do that, that's when you become a master. When you can have a conversation with one person, except that one person is the audience, then it comes across so much more authentic. It's elegant, and people can feel like you're not talking at them, you're actually talking to them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's awesome stuff, man. Well, thank you again for being on the show. I've always wanted to chat with you. Before we end this, what's next, man? Like, what are you trying to really take on or accomplish here in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. So essentially, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, was that we opened up in Niagara-on-the-Lake a little bit ago, and now I'm kind of stepping in to help kind of boost things and get that really going, because luxury in this market is basically the only thing inside of this little town here. It is luxury. It's like a Hamptons kind of thing, right? And I want to become that authority. I'm the only person getting these listings. I do want to share. There's tons for us out there. No, I don't. No, I want it all. Yeah. But and then once we have kind of developed our plans and our structures, and we're succeeding here, is to replicate that in other luxury
That's great.
markets.
That's fantastic. Well, I think you'll do it. Number one, you have the pizzazz, you have the sparkle, you have the intellect and the work ethic. I mean, to be a full-time agent or a full-time anything and still put out content on a consistent basis. People just see stuff, and even though it's like a 1 or 2 minute video, they're not realizing how much time and energy and thought goes into that. And so
absolutely.
Doing these different things in different ways is definitely already working in your favor. And so I'm just excited to see what you do in the next 5 to 10 years, man.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. But we're going to have to do this live one day.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. We are most certainly bringing it to Ontario. Yeah. I'm super excited about this new series of masterminds that we're doing. The first one's in San Diego.
I heard about it.
And then we'll eventually, bring it outside the country, but I think we're going to do Miami next, and then probably Hawaii, which would be a lot of fun. Yeah, excited about that. But good stuff, awesome, brother.
Okay.
Stay in touch, and this will go live next week, next Friday.
Sounds good, brother.
All right, my man. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers, man.